Being that it is very close to 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the October 19th Board of Education meeting to order. If we can stand and start with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to invite our student representatives to read our landing.
The West Irondequoit Central School District acknowledges the indigenous people of this region, and that this school district building sits on the homelands of the Onondaga of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It is on these lands that we teach, learn, and live.
Thank you very much. And before we get to our business this evening, I just want to say we just had an amazing performance by our high school jazz ensemble as we entered tonight. And I think Dr. Johnson has another surprise for us.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Falco and Miss Welch with us tonight, and I believe we have the jazz choir.
Correct.
The jazz choir with us tonight, so just delighted to showcase some of our student talent for Board Recognition Week, and I just want to turn it over to you, Mr. Falco.
Thank you so much. We're called Golden Blues. We are the vocal jazz group, and I thought maybe they could just say who they are and what grade they're in. Why don't you guys stand up, and then we'll go start in the back and across the front. Go ahead.
I'm Alexandra Canada, and I'm a senior.
I'm Elisa Pasiga, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Eve Mayala, and I'm a senior.
I'm Dana Rose Levechi, and I'm a senior.
I'm Chris Nikita, and I'm a senior.
I'm Jack Saxon, and I'm a freshman.
I'm William Lawrence, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Alana Slack, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Luke DeLeo, I'm a senior.
I'm Story Messmer, I'm a sophomore.
I am Mason Gornger, I am a sophomore.
I'm Dana Smith, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Emma Jane Shalon, and I'm a junior.
I'm Alex Friedel, I'm a junior.
I'm Owen Demago, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Leah Bosky, I'm a junior.
We're going to be singing tonight "In My Life" from the Beatles. We have a couple featured singers this evening. Ali Kagana is going to be singing. Luke DeLeo is going to be singing. We had another soloist who's in family situations going to be here tonight. Elisa is going to be stepping in tonight and covering that. So, more in the way, probably.
Are you good?
No, yeah, but.
All right. There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone, and some remain.
All it is having moment with lovers and friends. I still can recall, some are dead and some are living.
In my life, I love them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compares
It'll be difficult act to follow there. But speaking of the agenda, Dr. Johnson, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, we have one change tonight, please. We would like to add I4.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Vargas Cronin. Any questions or comments on the agenda? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. Mrs. Borneval is not able to join us tonight. Next on the agenda is public comment. We do not have anyone sign in for public comment, but we do offer the opportunity at all of our board meetings and welcome the public to attend and provide comments if they so choose. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the minutes of the September 21st, 2023 and the October 5th, 2023 Board of Education meetings be approved as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Seconded by Mr. Connor. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. And next on the agenda is the good news. Friends.
The juniors edged out the seniors for the coveted Golden Eagle Award to cap off homecoming week at IHS. The juniors came from behind, winning the flow competition and tug of war at the Friday Pup Rally. The IHS football team also won big, 35-3 over Eastridge. Earthly reading intervention teacher Jamie Giuliano, IHS custodian Joe Barber, Colebrook third grade teacher Miriam Johnson, and Iroquois secretary Susan Glastonbury are the first 4 staff members to be highlighted in our new staff spotlight feature.
Palmer Nature Center held its 41st annual Fall Harvest Festival, and despite the rainy weather, a good time was had by all. Thank you, Palmer Nature Center Director Kieran Manzola, Events Coordinator Nicole Raisin, and all volunteers who made the day possible. Southbound first grade teacher Mrs. Jamie William was honored as the recipient of the Golden Apple Award on Channel 8. Mrs. William is in her 13th year teaching in our district. She was nominated by the Horowitz family, which has a current and former student in her class.
Congratulations to Alex Anderson. The IHS senior is one of 1,514 students nationwide to be a Coca-Cola Scholar semifinalist. Alex was selected from a pool of more than 130,000 applicants. He and his sister Madison, who graduated last June, are the only IHS students to ever earn this distinction in the 36-year history of the program. Scholars are selected based on academics, leadership, and service to their school and community. IHS students Genevieve Hireman, Juliana Lance, and Cooper Petzing, along with West Irondequoit resident Isaac Emmerich, have qualified for the Massa Gold Sailing Regatta on October 28th to 29th in Maryland. After earning the top spot among Western New York teams, it will compete against top sailors from New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. Good luck.
Thank you very much for sharing all that great stuff happening. Next is the report of the superintendent, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much, sir. So I want to start out tonight and just, again, thank you to our leadership team. We had our focus area presentation earlier tonight, and it was delightful. There was certainly a tremendous amount of work that went into that reflects not only their preparation, but really work across the district from the leadership team and beyond. And none of this work can happen alone, right? It starts here at the table, but really, the bulk of it happens in our classrooms and schools. So I just want to send a shout out to our staff and our leadership team for setting the table for what I believe is going to be a tremendous year. So thank you for that. Also want to thank Mr. Zugelder with our jazz ensemble as we walked in. This week actually is Board Recognition Week, which we'll get to here in a second. I sent the information out to our buildings. And all I stated was, if there's something that you'd like to contribute, please do so. We can help to coordinate that. And that was something that they were compelled to do on their own. They wanted to share and showcase their talents with you. because they think so highly of your governance and your leadership. And I'll speak for myself, it was a tremendous treat to have them here. And then to cap it off tonight with Mr. Falco and our Golden Blues, that was just a phenomenal rendition. And I also want to thank Patty Welch, who was our coordinator for music this year. She helped a lot to bring that together. So we ask ourselves to begin with again, how are all the children? I mentioned this is School Board Recognition Week. So looking around the table, we joked earlier with the cupcakes, which I failed to mention, Miss Lena from the Date Facts team over there. And 3 of the students that came in delivered cupcakes personally to the board, just again to showcase some of their culinary skills. So we appreciate those sweet treats. So back to the board, one of the things that we mentioned over there jokingly was, that was just something for your hard work, and somebody made the comment that was a little bit more than what you hear maybe on the news, that it's 2 meetings a month. And so we know you quickly learn that it's much more than that. We joke about that, but again, you can't do this work unless you care. And that's the reason why, because it takes a lot of dedication. There's certainly highs like we experienced tonight, but there's a lot of grit that's involved, right? You gotta stick to it. There's times that there's unexpected emergencies and challenges, catastrophes in the world and community that we face, pandemics, whatever, right? And our job here at the table is to come together and ensure that our students and our staff have the support and the resources they need. And you folks have delivered over there, certainly the past year, but all of your terms, which are varying, but through the entire pandemic and beyond. So I can't thank you enough being a colleague of yours. And over here, you'll see some of the buildings. They each wanted to provide you just with some notes of appreciation. They kind of personalized those for each of you. So on your way out tonight, you can see those. I know that our foreign language department, world language department, the gift basket over there, they prepared some treats and some words of appreciation that we'll distribute. The Monroe County School Boards Association sent some nice coffee mugs for you. And thanks to Ms. Lustig, on behalf of the district, we gave you a token of appreciation. But again, I just want to thank you for everything that you devote on behalf of our children. Very much appreciated. So with that, how are all the children? Again, we got a chuckle earlier because the last time we sat down for focus area presentation, one of the things that Ms. Lustig recommended was a giant screen. No, that was my idea. That was my idea. She did not think that was funny. So we wanted a larger projection screen. What we found was I did not calculate for the blower and the noise in the room. But luckily, we're getting a lot of use out of that. You can see over there with the PTSA doing some events this fall around at the building, so I want to thank them again for their partnership. Down there in a small bubble, that's Rogers right there with Mr. Rogers. And they did a great job this year of just, again, we talked about building community. They held some special sessions and they gamified it. They talked about the expectations, the norms of the building, just wrapping their minds around that with students and having a little fun with that. There in the middle, you have our partnership with the St. Paul Fire Department coming in once again, live and in our schools, and just talking personally with our students about fire safety. I know that had an impact firsthand because my son came home and asked me about our fire drill. So I am now looking on Amazon for a ladder for the second floor. So up there in the right-hand corner, that's the Helmer Nature Center's Fall Fest. I know Mr. Brennan was there. I was on your heels. They mentioned that, so we got a chance to stop over there. It was a little wet, so the pony had to go home, but everything else went on, and it sounded like everyone had a really great time despite the rain, and that's a tribute to the planning and all the people that invested their time in that, and all the volunteers. And again, we also talked about Jamie Willman, who's one of our tremendous teachers at South Lawn, who's recognized as a Golden Apple recipient, so congratulations to her. A few quick updates. We conducted 2 finalist interviews for the Rogers principal this week. The So now we're gonna be doing some debriefing, and just looking over everything. We've done all the reference checking, and over the weekend into early next week, we'll make a final decision based on that, and we look forward to presenting a recommendation to the board at the next meeting. So we're on schedule, thanks to Ms. Kramer and her oversight and guidance, and great planning there, and which means that we'll have somebody there to begin right after winter recess. Working with Ms. Miga and Ms. Daniels Farron, we are preparing for the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, so I know the board has had some interaction with that. We give that every 2 years at the secondary level, and we're going to be reviewing that very soon and giving that within the next month, and we'll have that data to bring back to review and inform some of our programming moving forward. Again, thanks to Ms. Kramer here. This is the second year we're participating in the Top Workplace Survey, so that goes out later this month. And again, just another way to gauge our climate and culture across the district, see where we're at, take that information, turnkey in our planning, and go from there, so we appreciate that. You know, I chose to highlight the athletic storage shed over here. If you haven't seen it, it's well underway, but I think that's just a symbol of the work happening across the district, and we talked a little bit about that over the summer and into the fall here. I think that our grounds crew and our cleaners and custodians take tremendous pride in what they do, and that's just another example of how, working with Mr. Brennan and Mr. Conti, we're being creative with your leadership and support here to ensure that our programs and our schools have what they need to be successful. Last but not least, you've been an important part of planning for the special election. We have an informational night for prospective candidates coming up on the 24th. So that'll be at 6:30 p.m. in this room. I'm open to any questions or any comments from the board. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Jonathan?
You said the Youth Risk Behavior Survey is every 2 years?
Thank you for that report, sir, and I just want to say thank you to all of our students and staff that have made Board Appreciation Week. I feel very appreciated, I will say that. And if we can start every meeting with music and cupcakes, I think that's a good precedent to set going forward. Next is the report of the student representatives.
On October 10th, we made our first school visit, and we visited the School of Briarwood, meeting with K-3 students and finding what they liked about their school. A resounding opinion among the students was that their school is very diverse and welcoming, allowing students to make many new friends. Students at Briarwood seem to enjoy their specials, with art being commonplace in all grades. Students find that they are more successful when learning is made fun, a task achieved through games and sometimes award systems. Although students seem to overall enjoy Briarwood, there were some that provided feedback, wanting more freedom in the choices of recess and lunch activities, wanting choice of field or playground, and being allowed to sit in other places at lunch.
And then we met with Dake and oh my goodness. Likewise, her name is Likewise. I can't talk. Long day. Likewise. They felt that their school was very diverse and that it had a strong community, and they liked being there and being able to make friends. A lot of them really enjoyed the language department, and they liked their English teachers, and they felt that the teachers felt like they enjoyed being there, not like they had to be there, and they just felt that they could build special connections with the teachers. They did want to have an intramurals type club added to date, and they wanted a recommendation box for ideas to add throughout the year, but we, us three, talked about meeting with the principal for that and some other ideas that we get to add to it. Yeah, right.
So Irondequoit High School has been up to some pretty amazing things, and if I could, I would spend the whole board meeting talking about it. But I'll do my best to summarize what High School has been up to. So this Tuesday was Cabaret, an annual fundraising concert featuring chorale, choristers, VSS, and Sweet 16. These are the audition choir and the non-audition choir, men's and women's a cappella groups, respectively. This year's theme was the Muppets, featuring many silly songs such as Man or Muppet, Renaa Renaa, Big House, and Rainbow Connection, just to name a few. This year's cabaret is an obvious success. Accomplishment has not only been seen in our music program, but also in our sports program. IHS Sports are having a very successful season. From the 11 to 5 and 11 to 4 volleyball team wins, to cross-country placing third in the Manhattan individual, to the 6 to 1 football team win, Irondequoit High School sports are going to be a Section 5 powerhouse. Our music and athletic departments are not the only aspects bringing IHS together. Students and teachers created hallway decorations for various neighborhoods around the school. The idea was coined after teachers were advised by safety inspectors to keep an eye on students during passing time. Simply by standing in the hallways, teachers have the ability to grasp the overall mood of students. This can help prevent any conflicts from further escalating. These neighborhoods can be viewed on every floor and have helped the IHS community feel safe and connected.
Thank you very much for that report. As Chloe said, it's been a long day, so if you want to leave, I totally understand. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is not something we get every week, the report of the district clerk. And the first item is statement of openings on the Board of Education. Mrs. Lustig.
Yes, we have one seat vacant, and the term of office will begin immediately following the special election on December 12th through June 30th, 2025.
Thank you. And it sounds like we need to take a board action to make that happen. May I have the recommended motion, please?
Are we on to the approval of?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Be it resolved by the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District of the Town of Irondequoit, Monroe County, New York as follows. Section 1, that the Board of Education shall hold a special district meeting on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, at which time a vote shall be taken by the use of voting machines for the election of one Board of Education member. Said meeting shall be held at the West Irondequoit Central School District Office, 321 List Avenue, in the Town of Irondequoit, Monroe County, New York, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Section 2, that the notice of the special district meeting shall be in substantially the form as it appears on the legal notice attached hereto and made a part of this resolution. Section 3, that the district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause such notice of aforesaid special election to be given in the manner prescribed by law, and that notice of such meeting be published in the Daily Record and Rochester Business Journal 4 times within the 7 weeks preceding the date of said vote, the first publication to be at least 45 days before said vote, to wit, not later than October 28th, 2023.
So moved.
thank you, Mr. Ray. Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any questions or comments on that?
Is there information on absentee ballots on the website?
Not yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor? That is 5-0. Next is the authorization to secure vote personnel for the December 12th, 2023 special meeting. I have the recommended resolution.
Be it resolved that the district clerk be authorized to secure qualified voters of the district to serve as chairperson, chief election inspector, and inspectors of election for the special meeting on December 12th, 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Vargas Cronin. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Liston. Thank you very much for coordinating that and all of the work that is going into this special election process. We do appreciate it. Next is report of the treasurer, and first item is approval of financial statements and treasurer's report. May I have the recommended action, please?
Be it resolved that the September 30th, 2023 financial statements and treasurer's report be accepted as presented.
May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Connor. May I have a second by Ms. Vargas Cronin? Dr. Johnson?
At this time, I want to turn over to Mr. Brennan, if there's anything to add.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. Just, you have a summary. Only thing that's just slightly different than previous years, receipt of the levy has been slightly delayed through September, although reporting those is September report, October, right back on par with where we're normally. It's really tied to the larger than normal reassessment, the number of challenges, and then we also know about those things have been worked out very well as we kind of entered into October. Also note just, we know that the summer is kind of our time where our cash levels are the lowest. We've kind of gone beyond that point now with receipt of some of the levy and state aid, and so we're continuing to maximize the higher interest rates to generate interest revenue for the district. That's been a focus for us, and will remain so as long as we continue to take advantage of the higher interest rates.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brennan. Any questions or comments? It's so weird to hear you talk about higher interest rates. All right, all those in favor? 5-0 is listed. Next is report of leadership staff business, and the first item is audit committee. Dr. Johnson.
This time, we'll turn it back over to Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, first let's talk briefly about, under new business, there are the audits that we reviewed at our previous audit committee meeting. Those are in the final form, and as well as, just wanna note two things. One, in our external audit and the single federal audit, we had no findings, which is noteworthy. Within our extra class audit, which kind of governs the activities of our student clubs, we had 4 findings, and tied to paperwork and similar pieces. We are engaging with the Bonadi group to provide some outside assistance to those clubs, as well as training for some staff as well, to kind of mitigate those pieces. So I just want to note that that was a kind of a step the committee thought was important moving forward, so we've already engaged with them on that. Also going to take advantage of my time here, although it's not technically, well, it's not at all audit committee related, but just an update regarding food services, which often comes into the under the business section. Just want to talk about a change in terms of program, which I've talked to the board about previously. This is called the Community Education Division, CEP, and it really relates to a kind of focus that our district has had recently. So just first, in terms of what is the CEP program, this is a means by which eligible school districts can provide free meals to all of its students. It's been out there for many years. Eligibility is determined by how many students in your district qualify for free lunch. We've never qualified. Our free reduced population percentage has always been too low for this program. So it always has been about 40% to meet the minimal threshold, and then 50% to be fully funded. There was always a bit of a caveat for districts, and so as a result of some districts who were qualified under the 40% rule didn't join in, because the issue is the reimbursement you get at that lower rate didn't match what you would normally get for a free meal reimbursement. So that financially for those districts who did qualify, they would lose revenue out of it. It was a cost to them to engage in it. So, however, we know from the state budget that came out this past year that the state put in additional funds to make districts whole. We kind of met that minimum threshold at 40%. So just to give you some numbers here, from the federal government, reimbursements at just under $4.50 for a student that qualifies under a free lunch program. For a student that doesn't qualify, the typical amount is 85 cents. And so what New York State has done is they're kicking in the difference between those two for school districts that meet the threshold for CEP. They're trying to encourage more districts to join in. And so, but once again, we weren't qualified. We didn't hit the 40% threshold. However, in the background of things, New York State has been working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to see about lowering the threshold. Remember, this child nutrition program is federally funded as well. And so the USDA just recently lowered that threshold to 25%, which means now our district is eligible to apply for the CEP program. So kind of next steps for us. We are prepared to complete that application. The deadline is in December. We actually had it prepared over the summertime because there was discussions on this being kind of considered by the USDA. If we are approved, they would tell us what our start date would be, and we would coordinate with public information to inform families of the change for the rest of the school year. And then just some other pieces tied to that is, the one race for this, of course, is it was tied to the current year's state budget. So will it continue beyond this year? We don't know, but we do know it's in this year's budget. One of the challenges some districts face with kind of making a decision too is the impact on foundation aid. And the idea is that if not everybody that's eligible is filling out their free or reduced lunch applications, that kind of lowers your percentage in terms of the district. And so it's important that districts that do engage in this to continue to encourage people to fill out the applications, because it does help our foundation aid. That FERPL number is an important factor in terms of how much foundation aid. It wouldn't impact us this year because we're already pretty deep into the application process, but it'd be more kind of tied to the previous goal. If it were to continue in the future years, we really have to make sure we're kind of going into a campaign almost to really educate people, make sure they're taking advantage of this, because it does bring in general revenue in terms of foundation aid for the district. And the other wonderings too for our district is our best year in terms of food service was when we had free meals for all of our students. But it does really, we're not necessarily geared up for that. We pulled it off that year, so it would be something to continue to monitor our staffing. And our facilities too, they were maxed out. They're using every oven and stovetop they had to satellite the foods out to the various buildings. And so it just really cranked up. They're capable of doing it, but just be a piece in my supervision of working with Betsy Hughes, who's our food service director, in terms of making sure that they have everything they need around staffing facilities to be successful. Glad to answer any questions about CEP and opportunities for the district.
Thanks for this information. It's really exciting, and hopefully the state will continue to fund it. You know what I mean? And I know Matt's work with legislative have had a big impact, even just talking to our local legislators in our district. So thank you, Matt. Would that also include summer meals? I don't know how that program works. So, you know, we did do that one, and I don't remember, they kind of blur together a little bit, James, but we did a summer program one year for children who were able to get.
Yep.
During COVID, we partnered with East Irondequoit on that. They are the kind of most local summer feeding piece, but we could definitely look at, see about what our partnerships would look like here in the future.
That'd be interesting to maybe look with our partners, possible intermunicipal agreement for a commercial kitchen located somewhere in Irondequoit, serve both districts if this comes where we don't have the capacity.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Brown? Thank you very much, James. To John's point, I just want to say thank you to Assembly Member Clark, who has been advocating strongly for this over the last year and has asked us for all sorts of data that we've happily provided. So it's glad to see that this is coming together. So thanks, James, for all the work. And thanks to the board for all their support on this too, John.
So with that, Mr. Metros, can we maybe send a letter from the board that we appreciate that, and now that the new, well, maybe we should wait to the application what comes in.
Yeah.
Just appreciation from the district of that advocating for our kids.
Absolutely. Yep. And we will definitely do that. Okay, next is report of the leadership staff instruction. And the first item is Heritage and Identity Months. Dr. Johnson.
Absolutely. With everything that you heard today, it's probably surprising that there's more to report than there's even more. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Megan. She has some of our curriculum instruction team with her tonight to give us some updates.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. And it's very hard to follow potential free lunches, but we are going to do our best to excite you nonetheless. So we are very excited to share with you kind of the culminating products of some of the work that was started, honestly, right in the throes of COVID, when there was a lot going on in the world, and we wanted to respond to how can we, despite all of that, make sure that our students felt seen and heard and appreciated and celebrated. And so with that, tonight, Orlando and Kim have a presentation to you on our Heritage and Identity Months. bringing forth the K-6 read-alouds, which we've heard a lot about. They won't be up for this month, but at the next meeting, up for your approval, which has been now years in the making. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Orlando and Kim.
We're gonna set, yeah, you're not gonna knock over another one of us.
Listen, you know my relationship with these things.
Okay.
Pay attention.
Yeah, here.
Hi again. So yeah, I was thinking about when this started, and I actually remember the phone call, Chrissy. I was in my dining room, and it was you, me, and Brenna, and we were on the phone debriefing about what are some things that we can do to start making sure that we are building a system that all students feel represented in their learning. And that was years ago, and here we are. So it's pretty exciting to be here to share the culmination of some of this work with you all tonight. So, history. I'm going to start with the history of this project because I can't help myself. Originally this project had 3 components to it. The land acknowledgement statement, which we've done a tremendous amount of work on, it's still ongoing, but that was housed within this project. Curriculum instruction, we talked a lot this evening about so much of the culturally responsive and sustaining practices and philosophies that are becoming embedded in our curriculum. And tonight, we're going to be talking about the Heritage and Identity Celebration Months, which are intended to be an opportunity for buildings and classrooms to take a special moment to celebrate designated identity and heritages, both embedded within the curriculum, but also outside of the curriculum as well. Hi.
Yeah, so our focus with the Heritage and Identity Celebration Months was really to give an opportunity to schools to promote inclusion and a sense of belonging for all students in ways that go beyond the curriculum, with things like school-wide celebrations, invited guest speakers, and all sorts of activities that students can connect with, in addition to the curricular work that was going on. So alongside the Heritage Month celebration, so I think an important shift that you might have heard in sort of like the naming of this in previous board meetings, we had referred to it as just sort of Heritage Month committee work, but really we shifted to Heritage and Identity Months because there are months that go beyond celebrating things that might be heritages, but also identity markers like Women's History Month or Disability Awareness Month that might not be necessarily considered a heritage per se. In addition to that, there's the Real Out pilots, which Kim is going to talk to you about in a moment. We also gathered community feedback through surveys on those read-alouds to make sure that the books that we were selecting were meeting the community's needs. We also collaborated and garnered feedback from student groups like the Black Student Union and Mosaics, with really sort of the end goal of centering student identity. And so the Heritage Month really, the Heritage Month committee work was really a collaboration with multiple stakeholders like Erase, like representatives from the district staff, like teachers and TAs, and of course we were on that committee as well, to really focus on building a strong sense of connection and belonging between students, staff, and community members so that everybody felt like they belong.
And what is exciting is that the work continues because there's always more to do. So through the collaboration with our Heritage Month Committee, we also work closely with BOCES and the Director of Diversity and Equity over there. She's been a tremendous resource for us as well as Jeanette Adams-Price and a few other members of the BOCES. We've been really dedicated to making sure that the work that we're doing is really pulling in from a range of perspectives and the best possible work it can be for our students. So this year, we have 4 main areas that we're really focused on continuing. The first one, the Heritage and Identity Celebration Month. Sorry, it has been a long day. At the K-12 buildings, one of the really exciting components that we're really looking to bolster is through our library departments. So our librarians, who you've heard tremendous work greater lead in supporting the planning and honoring of these different celebration months. So actually, this Monday at our department meeting, we're going to continue that planning, figuring out how can we use libraries, especially the older grades, to elevate student voice, establish book clubs, and a whole range of other things that we can do to make those really student-centered spaces. And then, of course, at the K-6 level, aside from the work that they already do, being a tremendous resource to teachers, what are some other elements that they can bring to building celebrations as well. In a moment, I'm going to talk about the read alouds, which is very exciting because, as Christy said, years in the making. And I'll also be sharing with you some, it says up here 712, it's actually 512 examples of how this work is being embedded in the curriculum with the older grades that will go alongside sort of the building level celebrations. And then, of course, really figuring out ways to elevate student leadership in this celebration. So these are the months that we will be celebrating here at West Irondequoit. So we just finished Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're gearing up for Native American Heritage Month. One thing that we definitely wanted to discuss with you is the shift in June. So rather than calling it specifically Pride Month, we are going to be expanding that to Identity Month, and there's a few reasons for that. One is that at the 712 level, it will still largely be a Pride Month celebration in partnership with our GSA and other student groups. But what we really garnered from a lot of conversations with teachers and students and families is that not all identities are represented in these months, and that our students really are many identities, and that an opportunity to celebrate that intersectionality would be a great way to end the year as a kind of culmination for all of this work. So at the younger grades, our read alouds really do center LGBTQ+ and family diversity as far as identities that are represented in those texts, but we're really looking to support teachers with resources and experiences that encourage students to explore all that they are, share all that they are, and celebrate their uniqueness. Okay, yay, this is my favorite slide. It's just so pretty. So what I think we uploaded to the board docs for you is a PDF of each month and the read alouds that we will be bringing to the board next month sometime. These texts had undergone significant vetting. They've been piloted in classrooms. We brought them to the DEI Coalition Curriculum Subcommittee. They were sent out to the community at large for feedback, and we engaged in a lot of discussions collaboratively with our teachers, our community members, and our own leadership, and our library staff as well, to make sure that these are the best texts to put forward to the board. And the reason why we are taking this step at all is because we started to learn that, especially at the younger grades where there's so many different read alouds to choose from, that we weren't able to guarantee each month that there were opportunities for every student to engage in a celebration. And so by picking one text per month per grade level, we can now say that at the very minimum, every student is going to have an opportunity to engage in that celebration and learning, and engage in meaningful discourse with their peers. The work is to eventually build a lot of this into the curriculum at those grade levels, and a lot of these books already are in the curriculum. So this is a two birds with one stone, although someone told me a much less violent version of that, now it's escaping me, but we're very excited to see the eventual goal of this becoming something that's organic to the learning as opposed to this separate entity that exists outside of the learning. And then at the 512 level, it is not a separate entity at all. It is completely built into the curriculum. So how to represent all that has been done in one slide was challenging, so I will be brief, but I'm definitely happy to share any more if anyone likes to talk about curriculum. You know, we love to do that. So we, at our last presentation, talked about the We Are America project. I know a lot of you were there. So that work is in the process of being expanded across all English 11R courses. At this point, we have half of the 5 of the 10 sections now participating in that project for this year, and we're still figuring out how to build that capacity more. We have really worked hard to build diverse perspectives and identities into every element of our humanities curriculum, be it at the 5-6 level, where they might be engaging in inquiries about local history of Puerto Rican community and their fight for social justice, or if they're looking at the history of Africa before the arrival of Europeans, to celebrate the greatness of the empires that existed there, to help expand the students' understanding of the continent. Celebrating leaders of all backgrounds and abilities that have existed both in history and presently, local and national. It's really become a huge part of the work that we've been doing through our curriculum. So yeah, if you guys have any questions for us, or we'd be happy to address them.
On slide 7, we talk about the different months. Can you just talk about the process of what months were picked? Because there is some that just come to my mind that are missing. But just can you walk me through that?
Yeah. In our work in consultation with our partners at BOCES, actually, we knew that it would be very difficult to just put every single one of them in there, and it'd be kind of it might make the work like a much bigger lift that we could potentially handle. So what we did is we used a national designation. So there's actually a manual that has a list of the identity and heritage months that are recognized nationally. So we started with that, and that's sort of like the product of what you see here. It doesn't mean that we couldn't potentially later add more and find ways to celebrate others, but we thought that would be a really good place to start, just because it's sort of like a standard national designation.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes to mind from our focus area presentations where they were talking about the American Sign Language Club.
Correct.
They actually do have a National Deaf History Month.
Yep.
So again, we're that into our students, I'm thinking our students here, we've already seen it important to make a club. So like, is there a way to weave that in?
Yeah.
At some point, and how that's gonna look. I understand this is the start, but I was just wondering.
And that was part of the idea for that June sort of like celebration, right? It's another opportunity to maybe expand beyond. But yes, of course, there are places where this work could potentially expand in terms of like officially recognizing others.
Yeah.
But we thought that would be a good starting point to kind of help us narrow it down.
Yeah.
You know?
Actually, one of the helpful parts of expanding the work beyond our office by soliciting support from the librarians is that they are poised to expand the work. And I just want to give a shout out to Anna Barrel, our librarian at Dake, who reached out in preparation for October, which also, I did not know this, happens to be, German American Heritage Month and Filipino American Heritage Month. And she said, would it be okay if I start to put some displays around that? I said, absolutely, of course, so already, by bringing more people into the work, we'll be able to increase that capacity, because you're right, eventually the goal is to celebrate it all.
Yeah, and I know it's hard, but we only had so many months, right?
All and all means all,
I
right?
mean, we could always go 12 months a year for school.
Yeah.
Pick up 2 more months. Just an idea.
I like the cupcake. Any other questions or comments for Kim and Orlando? Thank you so much for this. It's to your opening point, Kim, it's great to see how this has developed over the years and expanded into what it is. And I think you're right. We're getting to the all means all, and that is really applaudable, I guess. I don't think that's a word. It should be applauded. How about that? So thank you so much, and thank you for this presentation.
Thank you.
We should applaud, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys next week, right?
In the hallways.
That's right. Have a good night.
That's good. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Next is Tutoring Center update. Dr. Johnson.
So we've been doing a lot of work on the physical space, and also just the alignment of the program, and understanding what goes where and who does what. So I'm very happy that Ms. Mee is prepared to provide an update around that. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mee.
Thank you. And just to just recognize the work of Kim and Orlando. I mean, you all just did that, but they are just such a pleasure to work with and just so incredibly good at what they do. And I feel like they really were helpful in bringing that to life into the point that it is now. So I mention them again. But the tutoring center update, I'm very excited to, again, on behalf of many of our staff who is helping to pull this together, provide to you an update on really our expansion of the tutoring center. So as you know, our tutoring center currently resides in the TLC building, the Cooper Road Old Library at Evans McGraw building. And we are working very diligently to expand that so that we will have some of our tutoring remain at that center, but then expand to a space in our Pine Grove location. And so this first slide is the layout, and in a moment we'll go a little bit more detail of the new Pine Grove location and tutoring center that will exist very shortly. And we'll come back to that layout, but just to give you a visual, this Helmer, this is the location, that center, that Pine Grove building of the new tutoring center. So this is that kind of western wing of the building, and you can see, if you're familiar with it, you can see that a door has actually been added to that location on the left there. And the idea is that for our students who are tutoring, they would be dropped off in that small parking lot to the left of the building, right in front of the wing that you see here, and then enter through that door. The primary instruction room will be where you enter through that door, and you can see the new carpet, the painting, cabinetry has been installed. There's water fixtures, and so shortly then I'll be showing with you some of the furniture as well and what that may look like in this space. But getting very near completion of these rooms, and just like a huge shout out to our DOES team who has brought this together. It's really quite amazing. The secondary conference room, so if you think of that floor plan, that first building, the primary instruction, is where students would enter, and then this is down the hall. Of course, you know, kind of in the midst of being built right now, but this would be a conference room, so often we have students who might be on tutoring, receiving counseling or other services still, and so that's a space separate from the primary instruction room for that to occur, as well as small group instruction space as well. And we wanted to note, just because those of you who are familiar with the building might be trying to think about, you know, what's that going to look like now. So you can see the primary instruction room to the right. And so students, again, they would enter that side door of that wing. There's the primary instruction room, and this is kind of the connection between the primary instruction room and then that secondary conference room. And those are where the bathrooms will be located. And then you can see there's also quite a bit of space in front of the secondary conference room, and I'll show you how we are hoping to make that also a space for like individual student reflection or work through some of the furniture that we're hoping to add. And with that, I wanted to share some of the work that has been done in coordination with Basin and our team to think and imagine what the furniture would look like in this location. So again, you have the floor plan. And then I just pulled from the planning that Basin has done in conjunction with John Conti. Chuck Miller has been an incredible help. And then our tutoring staff that will be moving into the building also was able to sit down and talk about what are the types of spaces that would really be conducive to this type of instruction. And so I've just pulled a few of those items, which you can kind of use the key of that floor map to like, you know, the piece of furniture. So you can see the overall mood board, but then for example, S5 is kind of that more casual seating where that might be counseling that happens there or a small group instruction. S6 is actually the seating that would go in that space that I just showed you, kind of the in-between where you had a little bit of room in front of the secondary instruction. instruction space. You can see how it's gonna provide for some individual student time, reflection, etc. And then just some of the other furniture that we have ordered and is coming in fairly soon. So next steps as far as the building, because obviously that's essential in moving in there and putting things together. Again, just want to recognize the outstanding work of our DOES crew in renovating that space. A great collaboration by Vazen, our student services department, so our directors and assistant director have had, you know, a lot of input and support to this. Mrs. Langley, Mrs. McCabe are tutors at the TLC Tutoring Center currently. Chuck Miller, who again has just kind of been like a point person for this work, making sure that it's getting done, and of course again our DOES crew. Also, we are planning for delivery and installation of the new furniture, so that's where kind of our projected time frame for the actual building to be done, and then that furniture to arrive that week of Thanksgiving, and we're hoping then to have a move-in date in December. And that's kind of the timeline for the building. But obviously, you know, the main piece of our tutoring center is obviously the instruction that is delivered, and we worked at the end of last year and then over the summer, our directors of student services and myself and some of the staff that supports this to come up with a guidelines document about, so especially now that we have 2 locations, what type of tutoring will occur across those 2 locations, and in addition, not just that, but what are some of the procedural steps for a student to be identified to be at the tutoring center, the timelines that we need to withhold with that, and then some of the work at the building level in support of that as well. So guidelines for short-term suspension, long-term suspension, awaiting alternative placement or program through CSE. Intensive social emotional needs, so that would be more of the building determined process where a student is just in need of some sort of alternative, likely short-term placement. And then we also know that the tutoring center has been used for credit recovery and academic intervention, and we're currently, myself, Kim Orlando, Alicia McLaughlin are looking at how can we add to our curriculum regulations regarding a process for awarding credit recovery. We have had processes in place in the past, but we really want to make sure that there's something that's clearly outlined and supportive of the work that's going on in a tutoring center as well. So those are some of the instructional supports that we are thinking about with the tutoring center. And again, part of that guidance document was a little bit of the location of which students will be at which building. So we are targeting the Pine Grove Tutoring Center to support students mainly on long-term suspension, as well as our 712 students. And then the TLC Tutoring Center, so the one that currently exists in Evan McGraw, that's mostly short-term suspension students for K-12, and then medical awaiting alternative program and intensive social emotional for K-6 students. But within that document though, we've also left some flexibility obviously for sometimes it will be determined by the specific student cases and needs as to, you know, we're going to use those spaces flexibly as we can. So in true New York State fashion, we had that all done and ready to go at the beginning of the school year. And then they very recently, I believe last week, sent out a formal opinion of council from the New York State Department of Education around the recommendation of moving to a specific number of hours at both the 712 and K-6 level. Concerning the way they phrase it is instruction in home, hospital, or institutional settings. And essentially, as you saw that list of the different reasons students might need tutoring, this is directed at those services. So it would move, currently it is 2 hours of instruction at the 712 level, that would move to 3 hours. And then at the K-6 level, their recommendation is 2 hours. The document that was put out said from 1 hour, we actually were at 1.5 hours as a recommendation or you know, a part of our our pieces in district. But obviously this, if you're familiar with our tutoring center, is currently, it is 3, for the 7-12 level, for example, 3 2-hour blocks. And so, obviously, this is going to cause us to change that structure and transition, that it would be 2 3-hour blocks of instruction at both the TLC location and our Pine Grove location. We're currently in the process of hiring a tutor position for the TLC, which is something that has been in our budget. We just haven't been able to hire for it yet. It was posted and then posted again. We anticipate hopefully having a person hired for that, within the next 2 weeks. It'll come to the Board of Ed. But we're making then a goal based on that, because we do need to have someone at that alternate location. And with the moving to Pine Grove being slated for December, we would then transition from from what we currently have to 2 hours at K6 and 3-hour blocks by December. That's how we're hoping to make that transition, with that opinion coming out just last week. And so we will be able to support it through that staffing that we currently have. But it's certainly, we are going to have to monitor what that looks like this year, and then see if there's any staffing implications for future school years. Because that does adjust just the general structure of which we've had for many years now. So are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
Did NICEAD say if there was like a time frame where we had to do the 3 hours, or?
There wasn't a time frame, which makes me feel like it should be done as soon as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure you have a follow-up question. So yeah, that's my question is, they put on an opinion, but it's not a rule.
It's not a rule, but the opinion of council, and I don't know if anyone else has more legal, legal juice than I do, but that sounds weird. But legal background, if there was ever anyone who's contested.
Yep, exactly. So they're advising that, John, based on, the current regulation is around an increase to home and medical, as Chrissy had said, and their recommendation, based on their opinion, is that now that carries over, and schools should use that, apply that to discipline as well. So
Their opinion, but
that's
so
their
do we
opinion,
have to
right?
follow their opinion?
But then if it's litigated, right? And eventually, we talked a little bit about this, and I talked with Harris Beach, somebody will get litigated. And so that would be the risk. That
The reason I'm not against going to 3
Right.
hours. My thing
Yeah.
is, they throw this just into us mid-year.
Right,
So again,
absolutely.
it doesn't sound like, I didn't hear Chrissy say there's also some money to help pay for
There is.
your 2 blocks, that we got 3 groups now. We'd have to hire 3
Right.
blocks to do 3, like, again, mid-year, no
Right.
funding. How does that affect our budget? We can't just, we're not
Right.
selling widgets on the corner where we can raise the price 5 cents
100%.
to get more money.
Right.
So that to me is, that's why I asked the timeline. I'm not against doing it, it's just the process of them doing that, and then when they roll it out
Right.
is very frustrating and hard for
Right.
our administration team and us
It's
as a budget kind of thing. How do we now cover that? Basically, we're gonna have to make some decisions in our budget. I'm sure we can find room, but again, we're gonna have to make those, instead of, hey, next year, we're gonna go to 3 hours, or we're looking at this, and you can plan for it, and James can put it in the budget, and we can look at what that looks like.
Well, and my recommendation would be, from my perspective, is that we're making a good faith effort, right? To the best of our ability, we're transitioning towards that. And I'm sure that's why the state, they're very wise, and, they're getting a lot of legal counsel. They didn't put a time frame on it, and slightly because of that. Because every district will have we have varying levels of capacity, right? Some will be able to move more quickly, and some not. But I think as long as we're making a good faith effort towards that, which we are, right? And the timing couldn't be better for us, because we're already looking to expand our facilities. Now, as a consequence, we need to look at our staffing and our structure as well. And you're right, that's gonna be that's gonna impact the discussion for 24-25 directly. Yep.
Can you refresh my memory on what's the definition of a long-term suspension and a short-term? Because we were talking about where they
Yep.
might be.
So a short term is up to 5 days. So that's gonna be at the TLC,
Yes.
correct, along with elementary.
Yes.
Right. The long-term suspensions are anything over 5 days. And those vary. Yeah.
And I know,
Yeah.
those are superintendent hearings.
You got it,
Okay.
exactly.
So,
Yep.
can you, sorry, I have a lot of questions.
That's okay.
Can you walk me through, like, a student has a short-term suspension? How is that turned around to, like, is it the next day the kid's assigned to,
That's the expectation.
TLC?
Yep, that's the expectation, if they're receiving tutoring.
And so what happens, like, if it's more than, they're outside, well, we bus all the let's say it's a K-3 student, I guess, I don't remember. But anyways, do we bus them there then?
They
Like, how does that all take,
provide
like?
They provide transportation.
We,
The families. But-
so what happens if a family can't?
So,
It's a hardship to a family.
it is a hardship to a family. We'll do what we can within our resources to be creative, find creative solutions to that. At times, we'll, if they're available, we could consider home tutoring, right? And there's various reasons. There might be reasons why a student would be better placed on home tutoring, right?
I understand that.
So that, but there's a capacity to that, right? Because there's only so many tutors available. We work with busines primarily on that, so.
I just wondered, like, you
Yeah,
said
yes.
under 5 days, so I'm thinking maybe someone's out of school for, 2 or 3 days, like,
Right.
how does that turn around and look like? I never.
Yeah, and we've been in situations, specifically during COVID, where there were no tutors available, and that, what you're talking about, that was a consequence. Because we did not have the people. And we were even offering it up to our existing staff after hours,
Yeah.
right? But, I mean, we can all reflect back on those times, everybody was exhausted and gassed out, and it was just, that was one of the consequences. So,
And then I guess a question more to my fellow board members would be, we now have 2 tutoring centers, and like, what is our long range forecast? Would it be better to put all tutoring in one area? And what would that look like? Would that be an addition on Pine Grove possibly? You know what I mean? I think, and Chrissy, correct me, probably from an instructional standpoint and just the whole overall tutoring, if it was in one spot, to monitor that and to work with that, I'm sure would be easier.
I mean, I think it would be good to live it a little bit, honestly, because I do think one of the benefits for short-term being at the TLC is just that, the location and then the availability of any staff to be able to go over there from the high school, or take, because obviously primarily our suspensions are at the secondary level, and so, that I think it would be good to honestly live it a little bit before, kind of saying which one would be better. Sure, instructionally, it's always helpful to be in one location and, but I'm also curious to see if that's
And I didn't mean to say we got like next year beside.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm just, in a long-term planning, we have a 5-year plan, right? Like what feedback from the instructional team, again, to us, and maybe that might be something that we have to look at down the road.
yeah, I think that's a great question for, working with the instructional team, facilities planning committee, those types of things. Right now, the structure that we've set currently, we thought about, the differentiation between the K-6, the elementary kids, and the secondary. And in the current location, as they experienced more of the blending, there's considerations in that. And so that was part of the current setup, John.
No, and I kind of understand that.
Yep.
I'll say K-6 and then long-term, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And maybe we've been surprised this data in a different presentation. It'd be interesting, at least on my end, if we could get some information, like roughly how many people we serve. So like, I know it ebbs and flows, obviously, but, okay, we're predicting, TLC, with this, how many students we're gonna serve a month and we have a store.
Is somebody from the board would like? We good? Okay, we can, Dan, how many students, both short-term and long-term?
Yeah, I'm just interested, like you said, it was
We
the
serve.
2 hour, 3 2-hour blocks, and then we're going to 3 hours, like how many,
So
how
currently.
many
it's
students
gonna
would
be
that be, like, we're not just gonna make
Right.
more kids in the block, we're gonna do what's right and do the amount of, teacher to student ratio, keep that the same in 3 blocks. I mean, the easy thing would just say we're gonna collapse them,
Right.
that's probably not the right thing to do.
Yeah, we'll see what we can get. Put down, maybe if we can put together 3 years.
We don't, can I tell you, I don't
Yeah.
need that information right away, it's just, maybe as an update how this goes, we can,
Right.
look at that.
Sure, we got it.
I have a question. What do the tutoring hours look like for students with IEPs? Are they able to get their services within those hours?
Yeah, so it will depend. They'll be able to get the services, yes. We are, legally bound to provide their services. I will say sometimes it might happen during that time, or if it's like a related service, that might happen, that could potentially happen like at home in some cases. And so it's really, the team just works, with the families to ensure that they get their services one way or the other. So they could happen during that time, but they don't have to.
It's all customized.
Yeah.
And what does the tutoring department do during the summer? Do they do those like summer programs?
Yeah, so they will, it's not, up and running full-time in the summer, but it's, our tutors are often the people who would work, for some of the credit recovery, or just, again, individual tutoring. If we have students who need tutoring through the summer, then they're a lot of times the staff that will utilize.
We're utilizing Vason for the design of the instructional space. Is that being done, or was that done for the TLC, for the tutoring center in the TLC, or is that something that will be considered to bring them to equal levels, or?
Yeah, we didn't for this instance. The furniture in there though is not too outdated, given that it was, done at the time when we built the building, which is not, it is getting on to be a few years now. But it's a much smaller space too, so I'm sure that could be something that we look at to see if there's anything we need to adjust. They're pretty well equipped with some of the flexible seating and things like that.
Yeah, and so, at the time, the architects at the time were part of that, but certainly if there's needs.
Any other questions for Ms. New? Thank you very much, Christy, for that update. Next is report of leadership staff personnel. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the personnel agenda dated October 19th, 2023, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Vargas Cronin. Dr. Johnson.
At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Kramer, please.
So tonight for your approval, we have a resignation of a special education teacher and teaching assistant. A resignation of some classified staff, of a secretary to the principal, a teacher aide, and health clerk. We have 2 leave of absences. One is an unpaid personal family leave of absence, and one is an unpaid FMLA intermittent leave of absence. We have the appointments of 2 full-time teaching assistants and 2 part-time teaching assistants. We have the appointment of a full-time teacher aide, part-time teacher aide, 2 cleaners, food service helper, our district piano accompanist, staff naturalist, secretary to the directors of instruction, and a library clerk, as well as at-will per diem employees of 2 monitors. Determination of a volunteer coach, and we have change in employment status of a teacher clerk to health clerk, food service helper to food service substitute, laborer to temporary custodial assistant, laborer to temporary custodial assistant, and food service substitute to food service helper. And then congratulations to the staff members for recommendation for permanent civil service appointment following successful completion of their probationary period for our head grounds equipment operator and a cleaner.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0. Next is extracurricular stipends. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the extracurricular stipends dated October 19th, 2023, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Connor, for the motion. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Bay. Dr. Johnson?
Sir, turn it back over to Ms. Kramer.
So we had previously approved extracurriculars. As we continue to fill positions, the ones that are in red font are our new additions for approval tonight, our extracurricular club advisors.
Questions or comments on that?
Can you, Dr. Johnson, can you remind me the process when we have, I know that the board has approved like a number of slots, I'll call them, you know, there's some of them are filled by name, but there's other, we call them like open, you know what I mean? 'Cause can you just refresh my memory on, like, they decides they wanna have some new club, how that works?
Right. So you're absolutely right. Contractually, the clubs for every building are defined there, and there's open spaces in every building, right? And so it really is the responsibility for human resources to supervise that. And that's the work that we did recently, where we put together a guide and some new regulations. So, Ms. Kramer, can you just highlight some of that? Because we've actually had a couple of new clubs proposed recently.
Yeah. So for those open club spaces, either a student or a staff member, parent can come forward and recommend an extracurricular that they want to propose. There is a form that they fill out, and it goes to that building's school-based planning team for review, and that building from there looks at really the equity of the club across the continuum, the students that it's going, how many students is it gonna attract? Is it filling a need of something that isn't already occurring? All those decisions really based on our district mission and core commitments. And then from there, they make a recommendation if it's a club that they're going to adopt one of the open stipends. That gets the building principal makes a recommendation to the superintendent for approval. Dr. Johnson would approve that, and at that point in time, then we would approve here for their stipend.
And then how is the stipend determined? So
Contractually.
Yeah.
Yep, so those, and that's where I check in with Michelle and Human Resources, and we review and just ensure that there is an open spot that's available for a club in that building. Again, part of the process now, we have a full form where they have to provide the rationale, all the different steps that they go through, and then that's where we make the final decision.
Yeah, I understand, but, so is it, and I can't remember, is it just the open club, I would say, has $1,000? Is it, do you look at like, okay, this is gonna take, as you see in some of these, and especially at our high school, like, so some of our class advisors, obviously newspaper, yearbook, those are large commitments, so they get a bigger stipend. And that,
Yeah, these are all contractually negotiated with WITA in their contract with the open, and then the open club, and they have an assigned stipend that goes to them in that contract.
So if there's anything larger, John, then what I would anticipate is that in the next round of negotiations, if it's something that is sustained over time, that could potentially be a topic.
you understand what
I know.
because there is some that could be a very time consuming,
Right.
and we would want to.
Or a larger number.
Or a larger number of students,
Yep.
you know what I mean, or,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking at the high school, like multiple grade levels where you could have,
Right.
that, so I was just
Yep.
interested in that.
'Cause and then they could make it a permit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they could do the pilot and then,
Right.
hey, we've gotten so much participation and this is really like
Mhm.
taken off. And I think we've seen that with a few clubs
Right.
recently. And then can you just talk about the checks and balances to make sure that the clubs are fulfilling their mission and meeting regularly?
You are nailing it. This is all the work that we did that Michelle led.
And I know you talk about it,
Yep. So Ms.
No, we
Kramer.
actually put in place, there are guidelines for each building to follow in terms of notification of the principal would receive around when they're meeting, and that regular meeting time, rosters, attendance at those. And then before the stipend is issued, that will be checked off, and then brought back from the building principal to human resources, so that then we would work with payroll for that stipend to then be issued at that time.
Another important, I'm not sure if I heard it there, Michelle, I'm sorry if I did, but the student reflections.
Yes, there's a student reflection component. All that would also then go to school-based planning teams, so they use it each year to help them make sure that the clubs that they're introducing and monitoring are really what our that student voice is incorporated into that.
Thanks for that description, that's great. That works. Just one more question. I'm sorry. So, can you explain the selection process and how, like, if someone wanted to do a club but they weren't the advisor, like, is there a process where, and I think back to when we used to do like lead teachers, right? Every 2 or 3 years, they would open up the interview process and say, you know, who's interested and you would do it? Or is it basically someone gets into a club and they're kind of into it to they want to get on that?
Yeah, so we're really in a transition period with that. So there isn't anything that is contractually outlined in terms of how that works like it is with our contact teachers. So with our extracurricular committee that met last year, and we're transitioning into that as we go into this next cycle, all of these will be posted each year. Right now, the building principals put an call out if they have an area that's open. A lot of times people continue doing them year after year, but we are really, in part of that extracurricular work was outlining that process and for posting, and then since we're slowly moving into this, that will be, you know, our process really going into next school year.
So it'll be a call every year?
And honestly, what happens in the buildings is kind of a general person's arrangement where if somebody's doing it, generally the people don't challenge it. And that's just my personal experience. I would say that if somebody did, then, you know, right then there would be a process. But I think at large, there's kind of that just agreement among staff that, oh, okay, this person is doing that every year, you know.
What is that?
Again, if it was challenged, if other people responded, right, we're gonna put it out. I'm just saying in practice.
I'm not interested in every, I'm thinking like, to give people an opportunity and new ideas and fresh faces, right? We look at all the clubs and just do it on a if there's 9 clubs, you do 3 a year. And I'm doing simple math, right? So because if someone was in there, it's kind of hard to, I look at it as you need like a year or 2 to kind of, you get in there, you figure out what's going on, what the kids want to do, you start something, so you want to give them a time, but also you want to have an option that if other people wanted to do it or give a time, is that possible? I mean, we have the same thing with our coaches, right? We kind of, well, that person's done modified coaching forever.
Yeah, they're annual appointments. So they are open every year if somebody challenged it. If there was a time frame that we wanted to put on that, that would be in agreement with the association, you know, but they are annual appointments like coaching where that can happen.
But we never list all the coaches. We only say, these are the ones that are open. We don't say all of them are open.
Right, but if somebody wanted to challenge
So
it.
if I coached swimming,
Right,
hey, I'm gonna come back next year. You wouldn't say, oh, we're a swimming coach.
right. Yep, if people are doing a good job, they're highly effective, right? Then you're absolutely correct.
Is there still language in the contract that if we have a qualified person in the district, we can take the position?
For, are we talking?
For coaching? Sorry, it's an overall personnel question.
Yeah, I can look at that, I can give that out to the board if the board's interested.
Thank you, sorry. I didn't mean to get off track, Michelle.
Any other questions regarding the extracurricular studies? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Listy. Next is winter coaching stipends, and this is a first read. Dr. Johnson.
I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Kramer.
Thank you. So tonight, we just have the first read of our winter coaches. Most are filled. We still have a few positions that we are in the process of filling, and one of the coaches was previously Board of Ed approved in the fall, but for a winter sport.
Questions on that? Any arise, please reach out to Dr. Johnson with this. Next is Personnel 2. May I have the recommended action?
Be it resolved that the additional personnel agenda dated October 19th, 2023, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Simpleton. Seconded by Mr. Connor. Dr. Johnson.
Yes, again, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Kramer.
Yeah, Johnson. So tonight we have recommended for your approval, the retirement of an assistant principal at Irondequoit High School of 7 years and 10 months of service to our district.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Any questions or comments on that? John?
Was this a late add, is that why we made it personnel too, or just wasn't added into the regular personnel?
No, correct, because it was something that came about after, it was finalized after we had posted the agenda.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. That will bring us to new business, and the first item under new business is acceptance of audits. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the basic financial statements, the single audit, and management letter for the year ending June 30th, 2023 be accepted as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Connor, for the motion. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Vargas Cronin. Dr. Johnson.
At this point, is there anything to add, Mr. Brennan?
No, these are singles, our federal audit and the base and financial statements, that's really our what we refer to as our external audit. Management letter details any findings for the audit.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Any questions, comments, discussion on that? All right, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. Next is acceptance of the extra classroom audit and corrective action plan. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the extra classroom audit for the year ending June 30th, 2023, and corrective action plan be accepted as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Vargas Cronin. Dr. Johnson.
Again, Mr. Brennan, anything that you would like to add?
The extra class audit deals with our fundraising activities with our student clubs, and the corrective action plan is addressing the findings that the auditors recommend.
Any questions or comments for that? John?
Is one of the trainings that is recommended in there for the Bonadil group, is that COSOPR or not?
No, because we need at least 2 districts, and we're the only ones in Monroe County using the body.
Any other questions? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. Next is Alpine Ski Incomplete Team. Victor, may I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Western Irondequoit Board of Education approves one Western Irondequoit student to compete as an incomplete team with Victor High School in the sport of alpine ski for the 2023-24 sports season.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Vargas Cronin. Dr. Johnson.
Yes, it's a pleasure to present this. First of all, I want to just say thank you to Ms. Schoen for the legwork. We actually doubled our participation in alpine ski this year, and as such, outgrew our partnership with Victor. So half of our students are skiing with Victor this year, and they were able to secure the partnership with Brighton.
Any questions for Dr. Johnson on that?
Do we not have an alpine ski?
No, we do that. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That is 5-0. Next is Alpine Ski Incomplete Team Brighton. May I have the recommended resolution?
Be it resolved that the Western Irondequoit Board of Education approves 3 Western Irondequoit students to compete as an incomplete team with Brighton High School in the sport of alpine ski for the 2023-24 sports season.
Thank you. Anything to add on this one, Dr. Johnson?
No, this time.
Justin?
I'll move it.
Oh, thank you.
Second.
Second. By Mr. Bay. Yeah, Dr. Johnson, I got ahead of myself, thank you. Okay, questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. Next is textbook recommendations, and this is a first reading, so Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Turn over to Ms. Megan. Ms. Megan, would you like to introduce these?
Sure. So we have 4 textbook recommendations for you this evening, all, as we've done many times now, all tied to our new humanities units that have been developed. I believe most of these are kindergarten, for the kindergarten level. And so again, this is how we do it, is one that is not kindergarten. So this is this text here. This is for grade 2, again in alignment with and it's in alignment with our Unit 3 Humanities unit, so it's quite a bit away from us teaching that, but I wanted to get this to you now. Broaches the concept of diversity within our own community. We also have What Does It Mean to Be an American? This is one of the K books, and so, just back in between all these. What Does It Mean to Be an American aligns to one of our kindergarten humanities units, talks about being an active community member in the United States. And then the other 2, My Family, Your Family, another K recommendation. There's a YouTube link so everybody can access it. And that is also the case for, our classes of family. Sorry, that one is also a YouTube link where you can all access it as well. So if there is 2 takers or 1 taker who wants to just take this with them.
This is how we do it.
Okay, and then you take it. Okay, and again, the other links, others are links for all to review.
Mrs. Meager, are you able to have those links emailed to us, because like they're in a PDF?
Yeah,
to
this is
scan?
like, yeah, I can email those.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're all getting to Jeff.
Any comments, questions on that? Thank you, Ms. Vargas and Mr. Vey, for reviewing those. That brings us to consent agenda. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Resolved that the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District approves the consent agenda, which includes K2 through K7.
May I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Vargas. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Connor. Tonight's consent agenda includes recommendations of the Committee on Special Education, bid award school supplies, bid award fine paper, got a thumbs up on that, acceptance of the 2023-24 annual fire and safety reports, approval of revised liaison assignments, and approval of the revised Board of Education meeting schedule. Are there any items on the consent agenda which a board member would like to remove for separate discussion? Are there any items of the consent agenda which a board member would like to remove to vote on separately? Mr. Brennan, you have a 3-hour PowerPoint on our fine paper.
I was gonna say, can we see the copies of the fine paper?
It's handouts only.
It's a legal PowerPoint, it's gotta be printed out.
Only if they're golden.
On that fine paper.
All right, any discussion on the consent agenda as a whole? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. That brings us to our report section, and we'll start with Board Liaison Reports, Monroe County School Boards, and we'll start with Legislative Committee with Mr. Sullivan and myself. Oh, you weren't there? Okay, I got it. So we debriefed from our meeting with Congressman Morelli. We started to plan for our meeting with Regent Hall, which took place today, and I'll get back to that. We're meeting with the Deputy Secretary of Education on Monday via Zoom in order to kind of get our asks in for the upcoming budget season before we're trying to get the leftovers. Basically, the idea is if we plan the menu, we don't have to beg for the leftovers when it comes time to budget. Sarah Pelucio, our legislative liaison, updated the 13-page unfunded mandate document, which includes over 275 unfunded federal and state mandates including John's point earlier about tutoring and things coming out of the state without any money attached to them. We formed a position paper subcommittee. I'm serving on that. We are reviewing the 10 papers that currently exist for updates, and we're also writing 3 new ones on minimum wage, universal meals, which we've already started to draft, and now we'll have to redraft based on the new information, and one on CTE. December 4th is our Monroe County School Board's Advocacy Zoom Day with our state legislators, and we encourage all board members to attend that if possible. There are going to be 2 sessions, a morning and afternoon session. A small group of officers and our legislative co-chairs and Amy Thomas met with Regent Hale today. We had a great conversation. We asked him what he thought were the top priorities of the Board of Regents right now. He said the biggest thing that's happening right there are the new graduation requirements, which are expected to be released middle of next month. And he did extend an opportunity to sit down with Monroe County School Boards in order to debrief that and provide any necessary feedback. He said after that, things that are on their radar are pandemic-related learning losses and workforce development. We bonded over the fact that his day job is in a blockchain company, which is also my day job, so very technologically forward conversation there on that. We also spent some time talking about what, if anything, will replace the current foundation aid formula. As we know, the foundation aid formula uses 23-year-old data at this point. And we also specifically talked about the issue that James brought up earlier around the free and reduced lunch numbers and how that's a factor in our foundation aid, and universal meal sort of works against that. And so that is something on their radar, although that would be something that came out of legislature and not regents. He also indicated to us that there are a number of groups vying to be the ones to produce the new foundation aid formula. So there's a number of competing formulas out there at this point in time, and everyone has their own specific interests in the ones that they support or don't support. So had a good conversation with him about that and look forward to working with him in the future. Next is labor relations with myself and Mr. Rich.
Will we meet next week? Next Wednesday, so we'll supply an update for next week.
Absolutely. And next is information exchange with Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Vargas Perlin, and myself.
We met last Wednesday, and the topic of the meeting was electric buses. Had a couple school districts presenting the process that they have followed over the course of the last couple of years to bring in electric buses into their fleet. Talked a lot about the costs of, I guess you could say, each transfer point. So bringing in the infrastructure to the facilities, what type of equipment is needed in the facilities for charging, and then the cost associated with buses. Talked about grants that are available and variability within those grants based on how school districts qualify. I don't know if it's the same measures they use for like lunches or not. And just some of the cost savings forecasted with the electric buses. I think they said it was about a $92,000 a year
Total.
I'm sorry?
It was 92 total.
$92,000 total across the life cycle of the 3 buses that the district had. So, interesting presentation. Most of the districts that presented are in the process of going through grant applications and approvals for purchases of additional electric buses.
And then John.
Good. And you said that a district presented that has electric buses?
It was Gage Shiloh.
But you said $92,000 for the life of that. That's the maintenance.
Yeah, it was like $187,000 in the life cycle of a diesel bus, and it was
That's what I was asking.
$95,000 maintenance in the life cycle.
Yeah, the bus actually costs more, but because of the grants, substantially more. Because of the grants and the difference in diesel versus the electric, they say that for their specific situation, based on their grants, they save $92,000 in the life cycle of a bus.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's what I was,
Yeah.
I thought that's what you meant. I was just trying to make sure
And
I hadn't had a chance to look at that.
It was interesting seeing what they put into the cost too, because again, it's, you know, what do you require RG&E or you municipality to bring in terms
How
of
far is the closest
service, the infrastructure they need on site for the different types of chargers,
Yeah.
slow chargers versus fast chargers, and also including things like training for their maintenance techs, because obviously servicing an electric bus is different
Yeah, that's a whole different.
than any,
And, you know,
safety.
yeah, to your point, they talked about different voltages and all sorts of things that different chargers can do and how that impacts the charging speed as well. And this is all in the context of the state mandate that all bus fleet must be zero emission by what, 2035, I think is the current number. But it's a very ambitious target.
Isn't it, you can't buy a bus, a diesel bus after 2027, and they all gotta be replaced by 2035.
Yeah.
I think it's what, 10-year cycle they say for the buses?
Yeah. Interestingly, the 10-year cycle for buses, but they're talking about paying 8 for the buses over 12 years. Which makes the financing hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was that I forget, they run it through building aid and not transportation aid too.
Transportation aid for the infrastructure versus the.
Versus building, that's what it was, yeah, because it's less, right?
Yes.
Yes, so,
I mean, I actually brought a bus with them. There was
they did, yeah.
an electric bus in the lot that you could go out and take a look at.
Is that posted on the one up on?
It is, the video and the slide deck. It was a good
I
presentation.
gotta make a point of catching it. I remember you passed along what it was, and I'm interested just to watch it, so.
And that is a great reminder, if you have not set up your single login for Monroe County School Boards, they would love for all board members to do that very, very soon. So,
Did they
it's
send an email on that?
probably did, probably did.
I'll look it up.
I get a lot of emails from Monroe County Schools, but I'm sure there's one in there. Yeah, so we've switched from the, you know, logging in as board member or whatever to having our own username and password. So they we can't think of the word, but people doing that has not been great. Adaptation of that process has not been great so far.
They don't use single sign-on for mine without the
Yeah.
new bosses.
So I was asked to.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is Helmer Nature Center with Mr. Connor and Mr. Bay.
No meeting yet, we're just waiting on the meeting to be set.
So they did have their, as James was there, Aaron was there, I was not able to attend their fall festival this past weekend. I heard some good things from my niece's kids that were able to go down. They showed me the pumpkins that they got painted, and I don't know if that was there or they did that day, but anyway, so they liked it, and Karen's getting a meeting scheduled.
Excellent. Next is PTSA. Ms. Bornwell is not here. I don't know if anybody else was able to go. So we'll skip that. Next is West Irondequoit Foundation with Mr. Connor and Mr. Sullivan.
I talked about the cornhole tournament, which was a success, raising nearly $15,000 for the foundation. They're talking about putting together an alumni association tap takeover. Trying to plan that for possibly into the spring of 2024 to raise funds for the alumni association, which is part of the foundation. The annual campaign letter was approved and should be going out soon. And they started the review and editing of the operating manual for the foundation.
Thank you very much. I heard Rich came close to winning the whole cornhole tournament. Next is TLC with Mr. Sullivan.
We actually had the meeting this afternoon, just before the focused areas presentation. Amazing how much you can cram into an hour of meeting agenda there. So we talked about PLC application reviews. There's funding available for 5 additional PLC sessions to be offered, and we're encouraging applicants not only to deliver the PLCs, but individuals to attend. Working through selecting representatives for state and national conferences, as well as the NSCADI conference. Very cool compromise in that process. NSCADI had been budgeted for 2 attendees. They had 1 attendee apply for a full 4-day attendance, 1 that could only attend 3, 1 that could only attend 1, so we had to try to decide who was gonna go. And attend and still remain within budget, so that was awesome. Talked a little bit about the coverage plan for when the current director goes on leave. Working through attendees for the New York State Teacher Center Symposium, which is a collection of 127 teacher centers across the state and sharing best practices. A lot of exciting PLCs left, 5 of them by the end of the year. Some staff wellness workshops that they're encouraging staff to sign up for. There's a TA series on neurodiversity, 6 additional book studies that are coming out. And then began talking through the standards for professional learning and looked at it from a couple different lenses, from teachers, coaches, and external partners being like the board or Mrs. Steckley, who is the higher education liaison for the Teacher Learning Center. So it was a great meeting. Awesome to see all of the professional development opportunities that are available for our staff at all levels. That is it.
What's a PLC? I'm sorry, I probably know this.
Professional Learning Community.
Okay.
So it's basically like faculty-led professional development, where they apply for specific sessions, and if they're approved, then they would deliver it, and then if it's approved, it also offers continuing education credits for those that attend.
There's so many acronyms. In the electrical world, PLC stands for something totally different. Program Logic Controller, that's why I was saying.
Yeah, I intentionally said PLCs because I wasn't sure if it was community or committee, or so I just kind of left it at that. And then, of course, you have to ask the questions.
And I guess I didn't realize this, it's the statement of there's 127 teacher learner centers across the state. So again, that highlights our dedication to our professional learning of our staff. So again, this is, and I remember back when we used to have to, and James, probably you remember, where we used to have to kind of fight for that funding in years where I think you were there, Chrissy, right? Like, they would only fund half of it, and the board made the decision to continue that. So, it's great to hear that we're supporting our staff that way. How many are in Monroe County? Like, I guess I just thought, I tell you, I just thought.
Not everybody.
I just thought every school district had one. Do you know?
Yeah. I don't know how many off the top of my head. I know Greece, Webster, I'm trying to think who usually attends the meetings. Pittsburgh, yeah.
So
It's not all.
So our director also has a group like Michelle's group or James, so that's good. No, can I tell you, I really thought there was one in every district.
A lot have across the state moved away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the learning experience.
Next is facilities with myself and Ms. Vargas Cronin, and we meet on Tuesday, so we will have a report at our next meeting. And then next is health and safety with Ms. Vargas Cronin.
Yes, Ms. Barnable actually went to that meeting, but they spoke about health, wellness, and our cell curriculum. They spoke about school safety, individual schools. The projects for October, they had the Wellness Month. They were promoting in all the schools. We also have a new substance abuse prevention counselor. Welcome her. We talked about security and dismissal and arrivals. And we also talked about the RISE project. It was a very good meeting.
Thank you very much. Next is buildings, and we'll start with IHS, Mr. Ray.
So I don't have a huge update because it's hard with the.
They steal your thunder.
They steal a lot of my thunder, which is great. I'd rather have them do it. But I do want to pass one thing along to the board, a heartfelt thank you from the 1211 at Irondequoit High School. If you guys remember, last year we approved their trip to Canada, and they took it, and Alicia was telling me that it was amazing. She's gonna have some pictures and like a little thing on it, but she wanted to make sure that the board knew that those kids had a fantastic time, and it was really a life experience for some of them. So she wanted me to make sure I passed that on. I told her that she needed to get Mr. Veronica involved in that. Sounded like a perfect thing for Jeff to. So anyways, that's one thing, and I approached Mr. Bajardi about, since it was just recently that I joined the date team. So trying to line up a IHS date day.
Perfect. Can't take the bridge yet, but.
We're gonna stand in Irondequoit and look what it would look like to go over there, and then in the afternoon I'll go over to Dake and say, what would it look like looking this way? But you know, I've been asking about that bridge for about 17 years. So I'm pretty excited.
Next is Robin, Mr. Sullivan.
I met with Mr. Henn on Tuesday, October 3rd for our tour. Before we embarked on the tour, I had a chance to speak with him in his office for a little bit, and the passion that he brings to that school is phenomenal. He really, he loves the school, he loves the students, and he really appreciates the opportunity that he has. Thank God he walked me through that building. The building's a maze. It's been a long time since I've been in there. One of the things that caught my attention is I don't think there was a single student that walked through that hallway when we did that didn't unprompted walk up to Mr. Henn and, you know, high five or shake hands or, so in a short period in time, he's made a great connection with our students. I had an opportunity to visit one of the classrooms that had received the learning space grants that the board offered last year, and the students absolutely loved them. It was great to see some of the students sitting on the ball seats and stools that had rounded bottoms so that they could kind of teeter a little bit, and it was just the learning spaces and how it was set up was fantastic. And then as a precursor to the email we saw, I had an opportunity to visit the gymnasium and see some of the damage that was done there from the water situation. But our facilities team has done a great job staying on top of that as best they can, and it seems like we have a path to resolve that. But it was a great meeting. We are working through dates for school-based planning and faculty meetings.
Awesome, thank you. Next is Irondequoit. Ms. Bornabal is not here, but as a parent to Irondequoit, I can tell you I'm told that it's good. Every single day.
You got that much?
Yeah. You're lucky. Curriculum night's next Thursday, so I'm looking forward to that. Next is Briarwood Colebrook with Ms. Vargas.
Yes, I visited Colebrook last week, and that was great. I was able to go into the 811 classroom and see all the wall and all the cool setups there. I also had the pleasure of going to their school-based planning meeting for Briarwood on Wednesday, and that was great. Ms. Farrell talked a lot. It was really centered around the cell curriculum and how they're using Castle to really set up that framework and to write up some grants for to get use of that cell grant money. Let's see, both schools were exploring and celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month this month. They had a lot of great evidence in the hallways and just very nice anchor charts about Hispanic heritage. It was really nice to see. Next week, both schools have open houses. So they're getting ready for that. That's a great opportunity for families to come in and see student work. And the students love showcasing what they've been doing in the year so far. And yeah, it was a great visit.
Those K-3 open houses.
Open houses, yeah, those are fun.
Next is Brookview Seneca, Mr. Connor.
Students are excited to come to school every day. They had a very successful PTSA movie night at Brookview last week, and they're looking forward to do some cider and donuts tomorrow at Seneca to celebrate all of their amazing students and families. Instructionally, students are engaging in CKLA in all of their classrooms K-3. And they're excited to see the continued growth from last year in the areas of early literacy, fluency, and comprehension. And they're celebrating Wellness Week next week for all their students K-6.
Excellent, thank you. And closing out is Listwood South Lawn with myself. I got an update from Ms. Pavone. Both South Lawn and Listwood had a wonderful Halloween event put on by PTSA. Our intervention review meetings were a great success. It was great to see the professional conversations around meeting students' needs both in reading and in math. It was great to see all of the ideas generated to support all of our learners. CKLA is off to a great start too. The K2 teachers are eager to see the year go from start to finish with CKLA. As I walk around both buildings, it is great to see the students engaged in learning and enjoying learning. And we're also working to get some dates on the calendar for some meetings. That brings us to future meetings. Mrs. Lustig, will we have future meetings?
Yes, we have the prospective candidates information session next Tuesday, October 24th at 6:30 here at district office. We have a study session November 2nd at 7 at district office, and a business meeting November 16th at 7 here at district office.
Thank you.
I have two questions. For the information meeting, do you need board members to present, or how are we
I
gonna?
was just about to offer that up. So the slides are done. I updated the slides already in our Teams folder. If you're interested in presenting,
I can come and help, that's just offering. And then just to my fellow board members, I've had an invitation to a work event on November 2nd, but I don't want to leave the board short, since we're already short one, or just, will we have enough for a quorum? I just want to make sure if I do not come. So.
I will be here. I will be here.
Okay.
I will be here.
Okay,
And Ms.
I just wanted to make
Barnes
sure,
will be
so
here.
we're not, John is not like,
Appreciate
we'll be bad next week.
Yeah.
If you have questions, you can send them to me in email, I'll be happy to ask.
Well, I'll be back before 8.
Next is executive session. Is there a reason to go into executive session tonight?
No, there is not.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Ms. Vargas-Cronin. Seconded by Mr. Connor. All those in favor of adjournment? That is 5-0. Thank you, everyone, for a very productive meeting. Board members, we got stuff to sign before